What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We are nearing the end of the road. We have reached the end of the road for some of our leagues, as the NACL and NACL qualifiers both wrapped up their seasons. The finals both took place last Wednesday, where Disguise took down EG in the NACL, and this Sunday, where we had Mirage Alliance taking down Coachify in a 3-0 sweep. We're here to talk all about that, as well as previewing some of the other stuff that we'll be, talking about over these next couple of weeks with promotion and LCS and all the likes. My name is Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I am doing great because in 3 days, I get to drive up to New York City and go hang out for finals. I mean, I cannot wait for LCS Finals. It was so much fun in the spring in Raleigh, and now, I feel like even more people are going to be there, and we're going to get to hang out, have a good time, watch NA Talent crush it in the LCS, in the Prudential Center, in front of the big crowd, and so that's going to be a lot of fun, and we just came off of a really, really great finals week for our leagues. It was a rocky year, I think it's fair to say, for NA Developmental, but we are largely done, and it was a fun road despite the ups and downs.
We started off this summer together for CeeLo. We're going to end our summer together as well for LCS. Let's go. We're both going to be there. We're going to probably record an episode, maybe have a couple of special guests on, and you might see some other content that we will be recording together while we are in Newark, New Jersey, or at the Prudential Center, at FanFest, at the LCS Finals. It's going to be my first LCS event since 2016 spring,
Wow.
where I was on vacation in Vegas with my family, and they just happened to be playing TSM versus CLG at the same time. I got to see Stixxay's, Ginsu's, Rageblade, Tristana rip through the hearts of Bjergsen and Hanser and that whole crew for the first time. So
that's a piece of history right there.
Yeah. 7 years since I've watched some LCS live. We're going to do it again. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's been a few months since I watched LCS live. I'm excited to do it again.
I remember I was so excited for the finals as well, like last year, but then it got canceled. The live finals part got canceled for COVID, and then in Newark, 'cause I was going to go with all my friends, and now, yeah, we actually got something going on here. We have a reason to go to the finals instead of just watching as fans. We're going to go cover it, quote unquote cover it in certain ways. Hopefully get to talk to a lot of the people that we've met over the years, and I think it'll be a really, really fun time. So if you're around the area,
they're both on the East Coast this year, which is great. So
East Coast supremacy for sure, and that means that I don't have to. We both don't have to. We both don't have to take planes. If anybody's around, wants to say hello, make sure to hit our line. But Hawk, we got a busy week or busy episode here because we're recapping the finals. We're also doing our NACLQ awards a little bit later. What we did last split with a little bit of a twist, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But let's start talking about our headlines, starting off with the NACL Finals, which seemed a little bit like ancient history because it happened basically a week ago at this point. DSG took down Evil Genius's challengers in a 3-1 fashion last Wednesday. It was a great event. Everybody was live in LA, and DSG ended up running away with it. The team that a lot of people had as the favorites to win the league at the start ended up finally doing it with some rocky pieces in the middle of the season. But Hawk, DSG looked pretty good, and the NACL Finals is where we saw the last time Harry, Jan, and Ayla were, and Armeo even, were in Academy last year. How many members of DSG are ready for that jump? How many of them are LCS ready this time around?
Grapes, I also just got to say, I'm really glad that you brought up the whole thing about people at the beginning of the split predicted DSG to win the whole thing. Because even though I totally gave up on them like multiple times throughout the season, I did all the way back at the beginning say that they were going to win the whole thing. So I am a prophet. You can find the receipts on that. But to answer the question, this is actually a really interesting one because DSG by the end of the split, they were really playing well together. They were looking like a well-oiled machine, and they have some fantastic individual players. But the LCS-ready is always such a hard term to kind of get into because there's the thing of like, oh, are they good enough to play in the LCS is one. There's two of like, what does ready define? Like it's, like APA, right? Like some players are going to go in kind of raw, but they got something that you can work with and really make a star out of very quickly. The other thing is that, do they have to be a star very quickly? And then the final thing is how many spots are actually available, As far as who is actually LCS ready, I know I said last week during our finals preview that players like Meech and Surdy are playing for a spot in the LCS. I still believe that. I think Meech is definitely a player on that list. I also think that this was a huge weekend slash year, I should say. This was a huge year for Zeyzal as a player on the comeback. Someone that has the only one of only 5 North American players to make the World Semifinals back in 2018. Kind of fell out of playing competitive for a long time. I think this year, back-to-back NACL championships proves that he is still a leader and a valuable force to have on any team. Also, another one that I'm looking at is Tomio. Just hasn't really ever gotten that shot yet, even though he's been around a while. But Grapes, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I like the point that you brought up where there's two different conversations of like, are they ready for the LCS and like, will they be playing in the LCS? Because I think for the most part, if you stick any 5 of the players on DSG into LCS teams, like they're gonna do okay. They're gonna do fine.
Yeah, they'd be fine.
Perform. You know, probably in the middle of the pack, maybe middle to bottom of the pack to start things off. But I think you could say the same thing for a lot of the teams actually here, like Team Liquid, for instance, or even FlyQuest. But in terms of like people that I would really be excited to see in the LCS for next year out of DSG, I think Meech is definitely one of them. I think he's a good shot with him and Masu probably being 2 pieces that I'm looking at to maybe promote.
Yeah.
Zeyzal, I think if any team is looking for a leader at the support position, you should definitely hit his line because he has consistently been incredible down there. I believe he won Player of the Series as well.
Yeah, he did.
And I'll send some love to Tomio as well. That guy always, this year has had that kind of playoff buff. I remember last year or in years past on like Evil Geniuses Prodigies and Evil Geniuses Challengers, he's had his up and downs, and for sure he's had the same here in 2023. But I think with this kind of change in scenery from EG to now Cloud9 / Disguise, he's looked really, really good. And while he wasn't necessarily a prospect that I in my mind thought could get to the LCS maybe last year, I think he definitely is somebody worth looking at this time around for 2024. Now, it is important to note that like there are a bunch of other really good junglers who I think could potentially get that distinction as well. Players like Mir, even Yuji on FlyQuest, you'd think towards Keel on Wildcard as well, that like all have performed really, really well. It's just that, Tomio is on the winning side of things this time around. But definitely somebody I think deserves some love this year.
Yeah, and I definitely think Tomio is one of those players on the fence because, again, jungle feels like such a deep pool in our region as well. Like, there are so many great ones. But I think for me, I would honestly be shocked if Zeyzal's not playing the LCS again next year. Like, even Meech, who is an exciting young prospect and has played really well, he is still newer to the Tier 2 scene alongside Young, right? So, like, I would not be as surprised if it was like, okay, we'll give them one more split in Tier 2 and then, like, kind of call them up mid-split or something like that maybe. But, I mean, I don't think there's any reason that a player like Zeyzal should be playing in Tier 2 next split when any of these bottom-tier teams, like, I mean, come on, Immortals, like, pick up Zeyzal. Like, there's no way he could be detrimental to your team.
Maybe potential follow-up. There has been rumors of LCS teams maybe stepping aside or selling their spots.
Yes.
If DSG somehow gets in there, I know I tweeted this out, I would just keep this roster. Just run it back. All these players kind of deserve the opportunity, throughout their play this year, and I think giving them a full year like would be pretty fun to watch. And so that would be my maybe hot take.
No, I'm fine with that too. Like I don't think this. I honestly don't think this roster would like make waves in the LCS. But I have no qualms with the idea of like if Disguise were to buy the spot, not just keeping the roster because, like say Immortals dropping out right instead of picking up Zeyzal, which seems to be some of the rumors right now. Like yeah, I honestly find it hard to believe DSG could be that much worse than Immortals. So I'm kind of with you.
Yeah, and they still have those prospects. I think Young had a really good finals showing actually on stage, which is a great sign. I think players like him and Meech are going to continue to grow throughout next year if they were given a spot in the LCS, and Fake God and Zeyzal have continued to be solid. Like that I think could be a fun story to watch if one thing leads to another. We saw what happened with CLG, now NRG. 3 of those 5 players are now at Worlds, so sticking these players that are pretty solid in academy into the LCS and giving them some time, I think can now be considered a bit of a formula for success. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm gonna leave that.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely with you.
Okay. Well, congratulations once again to Disguised. And also just congratulations to
Woo!
Riot Games as we move on to our next topic for a great NACL Finals event. We got, Deserex on the call. He was playing the guitar on the opening ceremony. Kangas killing it on stage as well. Just such a fun event. And, of course, we also had Toast, Skara, and Shifter all co-streaming the game at the same time. Bjergsen made an appearance. Like, what a great testament to developmental to round out the year. However, we can't talk about that without also talking about some of the negative aspects of this season, especially at the start. Hawk, does this great event, great capstone for NACL, make up for all the drama and all the bad things that happened to start this split off?
It's such a hard question because no, like it doesn't, but I don't want that to take away from like NACL Finals was awesome. You know, I mean, everyone in Tier 2 League right now should write Disguised Toast a thank you note. That would be good content. We should write Disguised Toast a thank you note. Like, because that arena was sold out because of Disguise. Like, there's just no other way around it. And it's great that they made it. It's great that they won. It's great that they played this year. And that event was awesome. The broadcast team was killing it, as you said. It was fantastic that it was live. It was so fun. And it was great. Like, there's nothing else to be said. It was fantastic, and everyone did a great job involved. But we gotta keep in mind that in my opinion, this is still making the best of a bad situation. This hopefully showed that people are still interested in Tier 2. There is value to be had here. We've had these mid-split promotions. Like, this split was a testament to the value of Tier 2. To all the fucking idiots that were out there saying, like, oh, no one watches Tier 2, no one cares about Tier 2, we should just get rid of it. I like to think that this split just proved them all wrong, because I think we had some amazing mid-split promotions. People were excited and interested, and so what is because of Disguised Toast? Someone got people excited, and that is what needs to happen. I know I had my rant about community last time. The problem is we can't forget that, like, right now, Tier 2 League, playing Tier 2 League, is still a full-time job that cannot pay a full-time salary. Tons of players are still teamless, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. There's no safety nets. There's no protection for them. And this split did start basically by all of the money in the scene turning their back on the players and on the region, like the region's developmental core. And we can't forget about that. So, yeah, we made the best of a bad situation, and there is room to grow, right? A forest has to burn to regrow, I guess. But at the same time, we shouldn't have burned the forest, and that needs to be said.
I think best of a bad situation is the best way to put it, because to put it in another way that I think you were kind of leading towards, DSG, the 5 players on that roster were all contracted to Challengers teams in the spring split, and pretty much at the snap of a finger all let go. They had to give up tens of thousands of dollars worth of money to actually be on this team and make it, because the difference between what Disguise was paying them presumably and what they were making prior is literally like $30,000 plus that they actually gave up. So even though this is a great situation for them, the best of the bad one, I should say, we can't forget about the other 30 players who were also affected by the situation. And I think the thing that is important to note as like a kind of counter to all this that we're saying is that I think eventually this was going to happen, in the sense of at some point the challenger requirement was going to be removed, and the situation would have happened. It's just, I think the biggest thing is that it happened at such a short notice, and people were literally getting terminated from their contracts because of the change to the rules, and that's probably the worst thing. But now that this happened, maybe Toast coming in is kind of like a way for things to kind of start back up again, as you said. And I know there's always conversations in traditional sports of like, oh, in the NFL when the Patriots are winning, like that's good for the league because a lot of people are going to be watching, like to the highest extent possible. Like that is the case for Disguise. Like I think the broadcast peaked at around 30,000 viewers, including the co-stream that was going on at the same time. That would not have happened in any other situation other than Disguise being there. But now maybe that allows for other people to get interested starting up
Yeah.
developmental, and we'll see what next year looks like. But no, we still have to remember that overall, a lot of players did kind of get affected by what happened, and I am very happy for DSG and also for the EGC players who were still given that opportunity even though the requirement was removed, alongside FlyQuest and TL.
Yeah, for the sake of time, I really don't think I have that much else to add. Because I feel like I said my piece. I think you elaborated on it beautifully. But yeah, like I like everyone involved with the finals deserves all the credit and praise in the world. There are so many people that are passionate about the scene and that care, and it was proven. And the value of tier 2 was proven. And so,
Yeah.
I think it's really like, no, it doesn't make up for what happened at the beginning of the split, but it happened, and let's look forward to 2024 and hope that things are able to keep getting better.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, or what we were talking about last week, like if we can reach this high more than just one time a year, I think that is what we're kind of going to strive for, right? Getting huge events with tens of thousands of viewers, not just for the finals, but just throughout the season, I think is a good thing that we can potentially look for. Like this is what we can do. Let's just kind of do more of it
Yeah.
as we go throughout, and that I think could definitely help the space. To a very, very good degree. So
Yeah.
again, really, really awesome NACL finals. Hope we get more of that next year. Let's talk about the qualifiers, which just wrapped up a couple of days ago with Mirage Alliance finally claiming their title. They beat Team Ambition despite some weird sub situations that happened. Lorem did not have internet the entire series, so Viscera came in and they did a whole bunch of role swaps to beat Team Ambition 2-1. And then clean swept Coachify 3-0 in the grand finals. Hawk, we don't have to talk about the semifinals too much because, not the full roster or whatever, but is Mirage Alliance this team? Are they finally at their peak?
I think the story from semifinals is actually that was the only game that they dropped the entire tournament. I think
Yep.
that is what we want to take away from that semifinal because, yeah, I think Mirage is here. This is what we expected. At the beginning of the split, when we were having conversations about this team, we basically, like, point blank, were like, yeah, they're going to promote, like, no doubt. And maybe there was a little bit of doubt cast after qualifier 1, but never that much. We always kind of felt like this team was just better. And I think they're playing to that level. I mean, like, players like Neo are just way too good to be here, to be completely honest. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I think this team is here to stay. I would hate to be Supernova or Team Fish Taco needed to defend my spot against them.
Yeah, every player really did their part in that grand finals, and
Yeah.
I think consistency was a big question mark that we had for this team entering the second tournament, but they kind of shut us all up in their performance, right? Like they might have had a couple of moments where they dropped kills here and there where they probably shouldn't have, but again, that only loss being like when Neo was literally playing support, which by the way, I don't know why they decided to let Neo play support upon like all of the role swap opportunities that were there. They had Dardoch being a top laner. They had Viscera in the bot lane, which to be fair, that is the position where he plays and Neo at support. I would have just done what they did in game 3 with Viscera, playing top lane the whole time. But I digress. Yeah, this team is very good and just looked like by far and away the best chance that qualifier teams have to make it out and make it into the NACL, because each of the other teams have had their inconsistencies. We could talk about Team Ambition dropping that series. They've looked a little shaky throughout, despite them finally, making it to that semifinal. Winthrop, of course, lost to Coachify, who we'll talk about in our next topic. And Lit Esports kind of have like a new look roster that we have not seen too much of. And that is those are other options. They all have question marks. I don't think Mirage Alliance really has any right now.
Yeah, I just fully agree with you. I feel like Mirage Alliance. Here's the thing, even like I feel like they still actually have more peak to get to. Like you said, they do kind of make some like random questionable plays from time to time, but they are at least clearly better than the level of play that they are currently at. I think promotion tournament, I would expect them to be able to promote. However, I think they do still have some room. We'll see if they're able to hit that peak. But I mean, as it stands right now, this team is. Yeah, they are the best qualifier team, and I don't think that's that controversial.
Congratulations, Mirage Alliance. We'll be
Yeah.
actually watching them in a couple of weeks when the promotion tournament kicks back up again. Moving on to topic number 4, we'll talk about who they beat in that grand finals, and that was Team Coachify, who now become the second straight team to win this, to finish runner-up in the second qualifier and not make the promotion tournament. The situation that arose was that Coachify would need to win the entire event in order to make it in. Rock Bottom, on the other hand, when we look back to spring, didn't have that chance. They were basically eliminated anyway. But Hawk, is this a problem that we're getting these situations over and over again, where the second place finisher just is not actually going to be representing us at the end of the split?
See, it's such a hard question to answer. I feel like we actually disagree on this. We've talked about this a little bit, but this is why I feel like the second qualifier needs to be worth more, because this is a very specific thing. This is the second split in a row where not only has it been like a team gets second and then doesn't make promotion, it's that a team gets second and doesn't make promotion over a team that got one semifinal appearance and one quarterfinals appearance. And with the quarterfinals appearance being the second tournament, both times. I just feel worse about that team that went top 4, top 8 than I do about a team that did not exist and then went top 2. Like, I don't want to see, like, I think overall the point system works pretty well, and I don't need to see any like grand sweeping changes. I don't like, but that specific scenario just doesn't sit well with me, and it's now happened twice. So yes, I do think it is a little bit of a problem, because like Lit's a great team. They'll probably be competitive at the very least in the promotion tournament, and I'm not worried about them per se, but it feels bad to me seeing a team get worse over 2 tournaments and still like stumble their way into the finish line than a team that literally did not exist and thus didn't have the same opportunity to get points.
Well, I'll provide some context here. If that's the rest of you, is that the end of your point?
That's basically my point. Yeah.
Okay.
They did exist, but it's.
So yeah, so this is a different situation actually than Rock Bottom, because Coachify actually did retain some points as Miracle from the last tournament. And actually, if the same rules were in place from spring, Coachify still would have had a chance to make the tournament if they won the whole thing. If they finished first place, they were 15 points behind Lit, and with that win in the finals would have got an extra 20. The only difference between this tournament and last is that if Coachify won, they actually would have gotten as the first seed, whereas if this same situation unfolded, they would have finished as the 4th seed. Now, let's, you look at Lit's appearances, they were quarterfinal and semifinal. You look at Coachify's appearances / Miracles, they were missed out on groups 9th to 12th and then finals. So in terms of number of points, that is actually the exact same amount of points that they earned through just making it in terms of placings, if that makes sense. They both won the same amount of series across both tournaments. It's just the 15-point difference is that Lit Esports got first in their group both times instead of once, which means that they qualified with an additional 10 points over Coachify. And they also won one more Swiss game, where Coachify won 3 games in Swiss once, Lit won 4. So that's the 15-point difference. And I think the big question actually comes through the fact that Lit only won as first seed because Cold Hearted got disqualified. I think that is actually the more interesting conversation that we could have right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that makes a huge
I also
difference
didn't realize.
in
I
terms
thought
of points.
Coachify changed more members. They had role swaps. Maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah, so they still had Lawrence, Citywitty, and Rovex, so that counts as 3 out of the 5, even though they're playing different positions.
Okay, sorry. So I misinterpreted a little bit, but yeah, I mean, my point still stands. I feel worse about the team that goes 4,
I totally
8
agree.
than 2, but yeah.
And I again, this is another testament to Coachify, because they looked so much better with Frost Forest and Toasty Alex coming into their team and really stepping up their play. Citywitty kind of was doing the same thing in terms of just like hard carrying the games if you got an opportunity. Lawrence was winning lane and sometimes helping out later and maybe sometimes not. But Frost coming in, actually being a real jungler instead of like a role swap like LJX was. And I think Toasty actually had a really good performance. This is somebody who we've been hyping up over the last couple of years on Wildcard and whatnot, but finally got a really solid opportunity here on Coachify and looked very good, especially in that semifinal that they had against Winthrop. So I want to send him some love. But yeah, this team probably is a top 4 performer, and it does suck that they are not here. And I do agree with you that not only should that Cinderella rule maybe be in place, where if you win the second tournament, you qualify as the first team. I think there probably should be rules to, allow the second tournament to count a little bit more because,
Yeah,
even though Lit Esports finished first in their group one more time than Coachify, that shouldn't necessarily be the difference, especially, with such a big disparity towards the end there.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't want to say that Coachify got like fucked by the format. I don't feel that way, but I feel like Lit got bailed out by the format, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that there was a possibility that Lit just like didn't even make it out of groups, and then because of the cold-hearted situation, they did.
Yep.
That raises some questions there.
Yeah, it's a weird situation for sure. I don't know. I mean, come on, it's not tier 3 if we're not bickering about format, right? Like it is what it is. Like I don't feel like Coachify got totally hosed. I didn't feel like Rock Bottom got totally hosed last year either. I think it's more so. I think my big feeling is that Lit definitely got bailed out. I think they'll still be competitive. I'm excited for the promotion tournament, but yeah, they're just the fact that a very similar situation has happened twice in a row is like a little bit of a red flag to me.
And shout out to Rally Cry for acknowledging that the format needed a little bit of adjusting.
Yeah.
They did make changes from spring to summer, and if
Yeah.
they are hosting the qualifiers again, maybe they'll make some more changes to adjust that. I am still excited for Lit though, because let's not forget, Supernova was that team that kind of got bailed out and stuck in. They actually did promote into the NACL.
That's exactly what. Yeah, with Dragoon, by the way. So
with Dragoon and Kisno,
that's like,
who will
and
again
Kisno,
be playing.
That's like the asterisk to this whole conversation, but yeah.
And Lit Esports got eliminated because they basically played only 1 week with this new roster that they have with Rock Boom coming in. I would, potentially argue that with another month or so of scrims with Dragoon, Kisno, Messages, Rock Boom, and Plux, this full roster, I think that Lit Esports have a good opportunity to scale. We'll talk about the promotion tournament next time around, but I have my eyes on that team, and I always have.
Yeah.
But
I think Lit. Like I said, Lit will be exciting. They'll be competitive, and I'm excited to watch them play. So at the end of the day, even though I do think it's a bit of like an issue the way the format works, I'm not upset as a fan. I think Lit will be a great representative.
We're going to be heading out to LCS Finals next week, though, as we move on to our final headline once again. Out of the 3 teams that are currently playing in Newark at the Prudential Center, NRG, Team Liquid, and Cloud9, 9 of those players actually made their way through the developmental pipeline here in North America. No, not even counting players like Berserker. We have, basically all of NRG. We have APA and Yon on Team Liquid. Even Blabber played some time in Academy. And MNS, of course, who was literally there this year. But, Hawk, this is our question because, maybe a slight deviation from what we normally talk about. First of all, great that we have a ton of NA talent here in finals weekend. But who's going to have the bigger impact this weekend? Those 9 prospects or 9 NA talent players, quote unquote, or all of the imports that are also here? Because there's some good ones.
And it is worth, we put quote unquote because yes, some of our NA prospects are not North American players, but hey, they came through our pipeline, right? And they were given that path to pro through North America. So we're willing to claim them and love them as our own. This is such an interesting conversation because, Grapes, we spend so much time on the show gassing up NA talent, but, like, I don't know, man. There's, like, Berserker, like, in the imports group. Like, that guy's pretty good at League of Legends. I feel like, to me, it comes down to whether or not you think Blabber, APA and Yon, and the NRG boys are better than, like, Berserker and, like, Core JJ and, like, those kind of dudes. Like, and especially when you think of X factors on these teams, like Cloud9, I think their 2 best players are Blabber and Berserker. That's like a tie, right? NRG, their best players are all like our NA dev players. But NRG is often a team that isn't like, oh, one of their players is like significantly better than the other. Like Palafox has looked really good recently, but at times it's Contracts, at times it's Dokla, at times it's the bottom lane. And then for Team Liquid, it's kind of similar. I think their best players are APA and Pioshik. So it's kind of a tie there. Ooh. And you can't really discount Yon and Summit at the same time. Like, it's a weird conversation.
Did you see Cubby tweeted like a DM that he and APA had where APA messaged him and was like, "Yo, Cubby, when are me and Piosik gonna be top 5
I
mid
did.
jungle
I
in the
did
world?"
see that. That was. Oh, that's so funny because yeah, I saw that. Top 5 mid jungle in the world. Piosik and APA. Dude, they've been really good. They were spectacular in the
Pentakill.
series against Golden Guardians just this past week. And the thing I do want to give a shout to Jan though. Jan has been really good for Team Liquid.
Yeah.
Outside of like the Ash game was really good last week as well. So I don't know, man.
It's a tough question. Who's gonna have the most impact across the weekend? I might be battling for our NA boys a little bit here, Hawk.
I think I am too.
You talked about the mid jungle for TL, right? And APA I think played a very solid series against Golden Guardians on Sunday. You think back to the first series of the entire playoffs, it was them against NRG. That's a rematch that we're going to be seeing at the Prudential Center. And APA really got gapped by Palafox that game. So I think mid lane is going to be very important in that series specifically. And if APA can step it up and be the player that I think all of us know that he is, it's going to be his first time on stage, which is always something that we're going to have to talk about. But that I think in terms of impact, like, him performing versus not performing a lot, or in the same case of like NRG like really showing up or maybe struggling in their first like live event that they've been with that as a core, like honestly, like in terms of impact, that might be a more important storyline to follow than Berserker just kind of carrying every game, because maybe we're misinterpreting this question, but
maybe we are. Well, here's what I'll say too, actually, because Cloud9's gonna win the split, I think, like straight up.
Yeah.
And Berserker may like pentakill every team fight, and that guy, like, I mean, he's just got hands like North America's never seen. But what I will say is Cloud9, I think, still lives and dies by Blabber. Like, that has been Blabber's team for a long time now. I think he's one of the greatest players in North American history, like easily. Think he's better than Xmithy, the greatest NA jungler of all time. And so on that basis, like NRG against TL, I think the NA players are all going to be really impactful. And just by like process of like majority, like there's more of our NA prospects in that series, right? 5 against 4. So, or 6 against 4 actually. So like, I feel like we could make a case for our NA prospects, and then really for Cloud9, I just feel like Blabber is that guy for Cloud9, no matter how good Berserker is. So I'll step up for the NA prospects as well. I mean, fuck, it's gonna be fun though, because here's what I'm gonna say is the fans have rallied around these NA players. Like, it's been so awesome to see. People are gassing up APA and Jan and Palafaker, man. Like, this is so cool. Like, I loved after TL beat Evil Geniuses, I tweeted APA actually stands for always plan a flight to Korea. Like, I don't like, it's just it's fun. It's fun getting excited about these guys. I feel like I've missed this over the years, and so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm super excited for finals, and I hope that I was surprised to hear that 9 out of 15 percentage. I hope that continues, because I think it kind of is skewed a bit because of the fact that NRG actually ended up making it, and that's like a team full of developmental. But again, a statement to any LCS orgs: if you want to go to Worlds, you could just look within, and that can get you there, at least as a core. And so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to finals, and we're gonna be there to watch the whole thing. Yes. We are currently planning to record an episode live in New York together, this time with video, because I'm not gonna screw up how we import things this time around. But yeah, we're gonna do that. It probably will come out after finals, because we're gonna have a lot of things to do during that weekend. But this is our chance to talk about LCS a little bit. We don't get to do that much, Hawk.
I know we don't, but oh man, dude, I love the LCS. This is gonna be fun, getting to watch all the players. There's nothing quite like being in a full arena full of people that love the same thing that you do. And people might want to say League is dying in NA, but when you're with that crowd, if you were there in Raleigh as well, that there's people that still care, and that the atmosphere is just electric. So
all right, that's going to do it for our headlines. We're going to stick on the topic of developmental, though, because in our next section, we'll be naming our NACLQ awards for the summer split. It is time once again for our second splitula, I think we're going to call it, Salt Awards, where we honor some of the players who are in the NACL qualifiers for the summer 2023 split. It's a good time in the spring split. We got some controversy. Hawk and I actually were in the scrim room for Maryville at CELO, and they were calling us out for not naming Odd Orange the first team last time. So
yeah, we did get
fun.
Called out by the friends of the show. That was pretty brutal. I told Odd Orange after CELO though, after they beat Winthrop, I said, hey man, that was a first team kind of performance right there. So
Did end up losing.
Did end up losing though, so maybe it was a third team performance after all.
Dardock was our first team jungler, and maybe jumped iconic there, but
yeah, Dardock did have the first team. Anyway,
we're ready for a new set of awards with some new teams, of course. Now that Maryville is not a part of the NACL anymore, we'll get a different first team, which maybe you are going to be able to predict. But we could take a look at how this actually ends up working out. Interestingly, though, it's not just me and Hawk who brought our opinions along. Hawk, you want to explain the criteria as we transition over to our fancy slideshow?
Yeah, I know. We have this really great graphic that was incredibly professionally made to show how everything's going. Basically, anyone that doesn't like their what? Oh shoot, I didn't transition. Here we go. There's our fancy graphic.
There we go.
Basically, since we got called out at CELO, Grapes and I didn't like that. No, we're kidding. But we decided to ask the entire NACLQ broadcast talent team to expand a team this split as well. So we asked Smacks, Awk Battery, Ravish, Travis D, and Niarco their thoughts, as well as mine, and Grapes's. So more heads, more people with opinions, more people that were watching the games to try to iron this out. So hopefully it feels a little bit less just like Grapes and I throwing shit at the wall. But at the same time, the main purpose of this, right, is that, hey, we wanted to just recognize everybody because we had so many great players this split, and it's to draw attention to some of the names that are coming up through the scene. A lot of these names you've heard before, but some of them you might not have. And yeah, Grapes, anything to add?
Yeah, we sent some ballots over to the talent last night. They filled them all out. We gave for All Pro and for MVP, for all the awards, we basically allowed people to rank their top 3 choices. You got 3 points for a first place vote, 2 points for a second place vote, 1 point for a third place vote. I think that's pretty standard across all voting procedures in this scene, so that's what we decided to keep it towards. We got a lot of ties, which is going to be a fun thing to continue to watch. And of course, a quick caveat before we get into this is that if you were comp banned, you're not part of the ranking. So that's just to keep everything as fair as possible. That is the rules that we determined. Otherwise, we played a single game in the qualifiers at the top 16 level. You were eligible to be voted for, and I think we're ready to get into
things. Yeah, we didn't include the comp band players just to keep things controversy free. Also, just notice the typo at the bottom. It's based on performance in the summer split, the entire summer split. So, so both tournaments in the summer split. But as Grape said, anyone that played and was not banned is eligible regardless of how much. So, yeah, we can hop right into it and see what the entire NACLQ broadcast team plus Hawk decided should be our third team.
I just realized that
All-Pro.
It's just you and the rest of the broadcast.
It's me and the squad.
Let's get into this. Yeah, we're gonna start with our All Pros. We have a tie already for third place in the top lane with Porsche and Dragoon. We have Trickster in the jungle for Winthrop, Messages of Liddy Sports in mid, City Witty over from Coachify in the 80 carry role, which is not something that he even played last split, and Coachify's Rovex at support, even though he only played one of the 2 tournaments at that position.
Yeah, pretty varied throughout here, and we should disclaim this as well. There are a lot of ties. We could not decide between a bunch of these players. So third team top lane, already starting it off, Porsche, Dragoon, both getting the nod for that. I think that's still really good for both these players. Both of them very, very strong. Also good to see some familiar names, Messages, of course. Someone that we had, I believe, on our second team last split, still knocking around here, having a really strong split here on Lit. And it's good to see Rovex in City back back hanging out with us here in tier 3, still performing extremely well.
Yeah, City had a very strange spring split on Team Liquid first, where some games he was 1v9ing and other games he was straight up inting. I know he was on like 200 ping the entire split, so that probably is at least part of the reason why his performance wasn't as solid, but I'm happy that he once again established himself in the bottom lane, because he was a large part of the reason that Coachify even made it to the finals. Like his AD carry play, we have some really talented AD carries here, was exceptional, and it really seemed like the guy that the entire team liked to play around. And I think Rovex was a part of that as well, which is why we're giving him the nod down at support. Porsche and Dragoon tied at 7 points overall. I think that Dragoon kind of maybe more individual performances that were highlighted, and Porsche kind of more on the team side because he also didn't play the entire split. So that's also another thing that we can keep in mind.
Yeah, true. Porsche did get subbed out a little bit. I think he was on vacation, right? But yeah, I mean, honestly, this is a lot of familiar names, a lot of players that we expected would perform at a high level, but it's good to see that they all did because obviously Porsche, Dragoon, Dragoon and Messages were sort of mainstays in the last split, but Porsche, Trickster, City, Windy, Rovex, players that we've seen before coming in, proving that they've still got it, and most of them, except for the Coachified players making promotion as well, we'll get to see them show their stuff, so.
Yeah, shout out Trickster as well. The only player we didn't talk about had a very solid run on Winthrop.
Yeah.
I think that's he was Trickster. That's kind of all we
Trickster
have to say
decided
about
he
him.
had
Excited
enough
watch
of
him
trying to
solo as
1v9 the spring split and was like, hey, I'm going to actually just join a really good team and be a really good jungler. So
exactly, and that's exactly what he did. So shout out to Trickster. Excited to watch some of these guys in promotion and other guys maybe getting opportunities down the line. Let's move on to our all NACLQ second team where, okay, some changes here. We got a lot of team ambition. Is Denethor in the top lane, a tie between Limo and Frost, who played on both Coachify and Komodo this split. In the jungle, Kachu, Levitate, and Snow 2. Hawk, Levitate, and Snow 2, they finally, they had enough of us.
Yes.
They finally got the praise. They pestered us long enough that they made the team.
I'll say as well, I had Snow 2 first team. So, for the homies out there, if you're watching the show, you can, look, I'll bat for you when it matters, okay? Like, you guys proved it. I'm a believer in Levitate and Snow 2, because I thought, obviously, as judging by this all-second team, all of Team Ambition was fantastic. I did think their bottom lane was their strongest point. I think Levitate and Snow 2 had another phenomenal split. If you're a GM in, like, Tier 2, I would really have my eyes on these guys. This duo is pretty cracked. They clearly have a lot of fun playing together, too, which I think actually goes a long way for a duo. Two great young players. And also, I think Denethor, I want to talk about getting onto second team for Winthrop. This player, we talked about this a lot on the CeeLo broadcast, Grapes, has had just a fantastic glow up over the past year or so. There was so many narratives about how individually talented he was, but just wasn't quite making it work in competitive. Denethor has been has had a great 2023. And I'm really impressed by his play.
When I was filling up my ballot, I was, I didn't necessarily have Denethor at the top of my mind because overall Winthrop had a pretty quiet split. They made 2 semifinals, or they made the finals and they made the semifinals and things. And, Denethor had some, decent moments, but I don't necessarily remember any highlights. So my eyes were turning to players like Lawrence and Vital, who had really, really great lanes. And, sometimes that worked out and sometimes it didn't. But then I really went back and watched the games again, and Denethor was just such a solid top laner throughout the entire split. And and he was my second team vote, and I think very, very much deserved. I mean, we talked about Levitate and Snow 2 a lot. I think they're very good. I think, Snow 2, I think, was on the recon in that game 5 against Winthrop is always going to be on my mind as really just taking over that game. And I think Levitate also taking a big step even from Spring, where he looks like a very, very solid bot laner all the time. Honestly, one of the strongest players on this TA roster for the most part.
I remember, sorry, if I can interject real quick. I remember our biggest knock against Levitate and Snow 2 in Spring was their inconsistency. Feels like they've cleaned up a lot of that for this split, which is so awesome to see. And I'll let you keep talking about the rest of the players as well, because I want to take a step back and look at this entire NACLQ second team. There's a lot of young players here. A lot of these guys are new, which I'm kind of just now realizing, actually, which is awesome.
Short note on Levitate, I think he actually, some of the best games were actually some of the ones that he lost, which is interesting because it shows that consistency is always there. He's always ready to help his team out in whatever way possible. He really was a big carry. I think Kachu also deserves a ton of love here. He got some first team votes as well, which kind of goes to show how strong he really was in the mid lane here for TA. Frost is an interesting one to me. I actually didn't have Frost Forest on my ballot. Not, I think he was very, very important in Coachify's turnaround. However, his time on Komodo in the first tournament did turn me off just a little bit because that team never really clicked. And so I ended up, going to bat for some of the other players, as we'll see here.
Yeah, Frost being the one exception to the new players rule. But Frost is always good. I definitely agree. I didn't have Frost on my ballot either for the exact same reason as you. I feel like the first tournament working against him a little bit, but definitely was a big part of the Coachify revitalization. And Limo as well. Want to take a minute to talk about this player. He's been someone that's been really hungry to prove himself over the last couple years. Came into the scene last year as this super I want to prove it kind of guy. I think Limo's finally proved it, getting on a second team. Big shout out to him because playing on this Team Ambition roster, he's really had the opportunity to shine. It's been great to see.
Yeah, big content machine. Had a great finals appearance for sure. Yeah, a lot of Team Ambition. I think deservedly so. They are a number 2 seed going into promotion tournament. Yeah. So shout out to them. You might have noticed an absence of a certain team throughout these first couple of mentions, and I think we're about to see why. As our first team is just all Mirage Alliance.
Mirage.
They got first place in every single poll, not just from us two, but again the entire broadcast team. I want to specifically shout out Chad Jungle. Every single person on our committee of sorts, including the broadcast team and then us, did have him as our first team jungler.
Yep. Chad Jungle was unanimous. What else is there to be said? We knew that they would be the best. I think the only ones that are kind of surprising are Alorum and Dardoch, actually. In that Alorum has so often been this gatekeeper top laner, but dude has kept the gate this split, man.
No, he kept the gate. Yeah,
he kept the gate. We were kind of wondering, can guys like Denethor and Porsche break through him? No, no, they could not. Even Dragoon had his work cut out for him against Alorum, someone that's been a kind of classic matchup between the two players. And then Dardoch. Honestly, I know I would have said this. I would have had Snow 2 as first team, Dardoch second team, but it can't be understated. This dude has, just come in, role swapped for Mirage Alliance, and been brilliant. Clearly has such a great mind about the game. And then the rest of the team, honestly, not too many surprises. Just so many great players, Mirage Alliance, especially in the second tournament, proving that they were the best.
Yeah, I again want to emphasize Alorum. Just he was our third team top laner in the spring split, which means that 2 people kind of surpassed him a little bit. Whether that was I think Niles or Dragoon.
It was Niles and Dragoon. Yep.
So this time that didn't really happen. I know that Porsche didn't get the opportunity to play against Alorum this tournament, qualifier number 2. But maybe he'll have promotion to prove himself. And that's all we'll have to say in that regards. Sudsy in the mid lane getting some love. He had a pretty shaky start to the summer split, I would say.
Yeah.
He was definitely getting caught out and dying a lot, and not necessarily didn't necessarily have the greatest of showings in that first qualifier. But dude turned it around like hell in qualifier number 2. I would say one of the better performers in that finals run, in their playoff run as a whole. I think he had 20 kills one game in the first game of finals. So shout out to Sudsy. Kept up his play.
Sudsy was also a player that was sort of on our bubble last split. Didn't make any of our all pro votes, but he was someone that we were talking about. So it is good to see him perform at this level this split for sure.
So the closest in terms of first to second was Dardoch at 17, Snow 2 at 14 points. The next closest was Sudsy had 15 points, Kachu had 9.
Wow.
Everything else pretty much one-sided. Alorum had 16 compared to Denethor's 10. And then Chad was unanimous, and Neo. Only one person voted for. I could actually check the poll right now. One person voted for Neo's second team instead of first.
I feel like we shouldn't put them on blast right now, but I'm curious.
We'll make all the votes public. I'm sure they'd be happy to defend it. Summer put City first team, and I think that goes
really
into part of the discussion that we'll be having a little bit later in terms of just how much of an impact City had on
Yeah,
that team.
that is actually that's kind of fair actually because City definitely we will talk about this later, but City was definitely very like impactful for the team. So I can see that. I'm okay with that. Summer, you get a pass.
Taking a look right now, if there are any snubs that you want to talk about, Hawk, before we move on to our second portion of this award show.
Snubs? I don't think anyone got outright snubbed. I think especially the fact that like I think everyone in this list very much deserved to be on here. Anyone that I'm trying to think
So, if you don't have anybody right off the top of your head, I can go through the
like
list a little bit and
Winthrop's.
talk about the other people who had votes.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that first.
So, yeah, in the top lane, it was basically just those three. There was there was a little bit of love shown to Lawrence and Vital, who each got a third place vote. In the jungle, Kisno had 2 third place votes, and that was about it. Other than the 4 people, sorry, that we mentioned. Mid lane was a little bit more contested, and I think maybe this is where we can stop first to talk about things. Sword got some love. He had 3 points overall, and Toasty of Coachify had 4 points. Doxa and Aojun each also got a couple of votes here and there.
Yeah, I definitely think as far as like snubs are concerned, which again I don't really feel that anyone got like snubbed, but players that I would love to shout out. I think the other Winthrop players that weren't on these lists being their mid laners Sword / Conveying and Messages and Chookies all had strong splits. And I think they were in my mind as I was voting. I just feel like it wasn't quite as much about them as we might have expected. Winthrop, of course, I think we had them as like a pretty clear second place team throughout the entire year. They never really lived up to that potential. They're still a very good team, and I'm still excited for them for promotion. So I think that ended up being the difference maker there. Outrum getting a vote is interesting.
The player that got closest to making a team but didn't was Chookies with 1 point behind Rovex.
Yeah,
5
yeah.
versus 6.
Chookies is
and
pretty
I think
good.
that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chookies is pretty good.
Well, congratulations to all of our award winners. We have a couple more things to give out as we can move on here. Hawk, what's next? I actually don't.
We got
remember.
Rookie of the
Okay,
Split.
Rookie of the Split. Congratulations to Inori Boob, who is the 80 carry of Teamless Revenge.
Oh,
and
sorry.
We also have Dragowski, the middle sticks jungler, who had some good performances. So the way that we classified this was just people who never played at this tier 3 top 16 level of play. And I think both these players kind of exemplify really solid first outings.
Yeah, sorry for the typo. I got mind controlled by Dragowski also being a jungler. But
Very
both
fair.
of them had really good outings. I actually casted a Dragowski's, I think, round of 32 match in CLOL. Got to see a little bit of him before qualifier started. This is a player that definitely people want to have their eyes on. When I was doing my research into, I think it's Florida Southern is who he plays for, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
People said that, people that knew of the team told me, like, this is the guy you got to watch out for. In that game, he was the guy that needed to be watched out for. I'm not going to lie, given that it was a round of 32 CLO match, it still wasn't that close. But really came out on a return of the middle six team that no one had expectations for and played really well. And likewise, Teamless Revenge, Inori B was definitely one of those big question marks and showed up.
Yeah, became really the main carry of that
Definitely.
team once that roster got completely shuffled around into qualifier number 2, and really hard carried that roster. I mean, he was 1v9ing some of those games that they had in the series that they won against Team Ambition, and even in the rematch that they had second time around, Noribi made it very, very close. And Team Ambition, who had a ton of all-team members, almost didn't make it out of groups because of this guy. So he's definitely a person that I'm excited to look out for moving forward, as well as Dragowski. Third place on our list, Noribi and Dragowski were both tied at 10 votes or 10 points. Third place was Baz of Apex Mission Impossible with 5, and I think that guy deserves a bit of a shout as well.
Yeah, Baz. We had not very high expectations for Apex Mission Impossible. There were a few people in the committee actually that were saying, "Hey, Baz is pretty good. You might want to watch out for this guy." I've heard that about people in the committee, and they've not been good at all. And I've heard that about people in the committee, and they've been great. Baz was one of the ones that was great. He had a really good split, so definitely a shout out deserved there. But these two players, for sure, like Inori B, Dragowski, I would watch out for them next year because they looked really good on teams that I especially want to add were not expected to perform. It's really hard to look really good when your team is supposed to get blasted. So if your team doesn't get blasted and you're playing well, that's a really good showing.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show in cases even in the LCS with like Revenge going to EG
Yeah.
and looking a lot better, and even like like Kachu even of
Yeah.
TA like actually getting a solid roster and really turning things up. So congrats to these rookies. We have one more award before we give out our MVP, and that is Most Improved Player. This was a bit of a crapshoot. We're gonna just stick that out there right now. The winner here is Dardoch. He got 2 total votes, 1 first place vote, 1 second place vote for Most Improved Player. Nobody else got more than 1 vote across any first, second, or third, which meant that a lot of people had different opinions about who was the quote-unquote most improved player. But Dardoch did get the most points, so congratulations to him.
Yeah, just to talk about Dardoch for a second, was not personally one of my votes. However, I feel like Dardoch is someone that really deserves it because, he's someone that I think we expected to be good, even role swapping to support. But this is a guy that has really revitalized his career this year in 2023. I think he's really proving himself to be a fantastic veteran presence for teams that, might need that. He went from being our first team all NACLQ jungler in spring to winning CLOL in the mid split of this year as just jungler, coming into this split and winning it all and being our first team all NACLQ support. Role swapping. I mean, this it's a really amazing trajectory. He's clearly worked very hard this year. He's deserved all the success he's having, and I mean in the promotion tournament, Dardoch is definitely someone that has a great mind for the game, and you can't get rid of that easily,
Yeah, in a way, comparing first team jungler to first team support, was first team in spring, first team in summer. Yeah, maybe he didn't like jump that much, but in terms of just like his play as a support, was kind of stuck on Milio duty for the entirety of the first tournament, and then
Yeah.
learned new champions kind of throughout the summer, and really had a very flexible champion pool once we got to the grand finals. And Dardoch, I think, has really been a big leader for this team as well.
Yeah.
From what we've been hearing, had a really great interview during the semifinals where he displayed a lot of insight about how the team ends up working, and it's pretty clear that he has been a really valuable part of this Mirage Alliance roster, and they trusted him so much that he could role swap to support because they wanted him that badly on that team.
Yeah.
So
They
we'll see how he does in promotion. Do you think he stays as support unless if it's with a different team, or is he going to go back to the jungle?
Dardoch seems to me like a player that will do whatever it takes to win. He was the one from when we talked to Chad Jungle. He was the one that offered to role swap to support so that they could get Chad, so that they could win. So I think Dardoch will go somewhere that wants him and wants to win, and he'll do what it takes because that to me has been the biggest takeaway from this year. Like, regardless of his growth as a support player, which has been fantastic, to me, again, the story is his growth just as a player in general. I think this year and this split in particular is the testament to that. It's been fantastic. So
Before we move on to our most prestigious award, let's shout out some of the. I'm just going to shout out some of the other players that got first place votes for this most improved player award because they were all over the place. We had one person decline to vote, and then we had CCG's Rain, Vital from Team Turner, who was my pick, Toasty, Inori B, and Kachu Hawk, who was your vote. So congratulations to them as well. I think they all, had some solid performances throughout the year.
yeah, they really did. I want to talk about Kachu just for another minute because I didn't in when we were talking about second team. I know he's not on here, but Kachu was a player that came in as a prospect in spring as a substitute, and we were kind of like, hey, this guy's actually pretty good. And then he came out this summer and was not just pretty good. He was actually fantastic. He was able to be a carry on a very good team and contend at the very top of the qualifier food chain. So I was really impressed. I think his growth throughout the year and the split has been incredible. So I'm a little sad he didn't win, but I understand why Dardoch won. I think Dardoch is a great option as well, but shout out to Kachu.
And now the lone Maryville University rep, down
True.
here in Tier 3, still winning some awards. Hey, maybe that battle between him and Get Back could get interesting. I think Kachu.
Dude, he got placed higher
spending
than
some
Otto.
time in some of those tournaments would be pretty cool. Damn. Okay. Let's move on to our last award. I hope Maryville, if you're watching this, we love you. The
I
most
say with love. It's fun. It's
the most valuable player of the NACLQ summer split is Shocker Hawk. It is a tie between Neo of Mirage Alliance and City-Witty of Team Coachify / Miracle, however you want to call it. This was surprising. They both tied at 11 points. I think, Hawk, I guess if you wanna start us off in this conversation, we got one player who maybe people were expecting to win this award, one people maybe not.
It's funny too because I voted last out of everyone, and I was the one that created this tie. It was gonna be Neo, but I put City-Witty above. I put City-Witty first, Neo second. But this I think is actually the best possible scenario because it's what do you define as MVP? We had a whole conversation about this on the show like 3 weeks ago. Neo, I just think was the best, but Team Coachify, we would not have had our entire like third headline question if it weren't for City-Witty. Indispensable to the team, but Neo was the guy that ultimately was like when, he's the berserker when the chips are down, he's just going to win you the whole thing. I mean, this guy I thought wasn't that bad in the LCS last year. Clearly he was going to tear up NACLQ this year, but I mean, City, the role swaps and stuff early split were weird. It was questionable, but by qualifier 2, I mean, there's just no doubt that he was the definition of a valuable player.
Yeah, City got a game of Kindred in the finals as well. So he got a little bit over back and forth. Almost carried that game. He had like 4 marks in 3 minutes, and then they ended up losing, which is a little bit sad. But yeah, I think I agree wholeheartedly. I had City-Witty as my second place, I believe, on my MVP ballot because of all the things that you just said. But yeah, Neo probably the best player here. However, the rest of his team was also very good. They all also won first team, so that is the argument that you can make. Maybe he wasn't as valuable to his team success as somebody like City-Witty was, who we saw, being the kind of the best jungler and bot laner on his team, which is not something that you normally see. And yeah, I think without him, this team looks very different. And I do hope that City gets another chance to redeem himself in Tier 2 because kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth on Team Liquid first. So if the chips are if he's in the right position for the off season and gets a spot, I'd be very excited to watch him play.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think both these players, their careers, both long careers, are far from done, and they definitely proved it this split.
Team Ambition didn't get any love. I think that team is just so well-rounded that it's hard to vote for any of them individually as MVP. If we take a look really quickly at the full ballot that I have set up here, the other people that got some votes were Kachu, Sudsy, Chad, and Messages, all with 3 points, whether that was some being a first team or second vote or whatever. So congratulations to them, but specifically our MVPs in City-Witty and Neo. That's going to wrap it up for our second split Salt Awards here, Hawk. Not too many surprises. I think the addition of some of our friends was a good idea for us.
Yeah, I'm glad that we did that. I just feel like it's always good to get more opinions. I've also I've been following NACL qualifiers as much as I can, but with CBLOL on the weekends, it's been hard for me personally to entirely keep up. So I felt really good about having those extra opinions as well. And I think it's just a great way to get more voices, again, talking about the scene. Because what this is really about is this is not like an official rating or anything, although we might be the most official rating that there is. But this is not like an official All-Pro or anything, but we just want to give recognition to players that deserve it. Every single player that you saw on here really played great. And again, there's talent in this pipeline. There's players that are hungry to keep competing, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see more of them either in the NACL or Tier 3 or whatever ends up formulating in the off season for next year. But that's going to do it for our 28th episode of Salty Runback. Reminder, we will be at the LCS Finals in Newark, New Jersey this weekend. Hawk and I will be eating some pizza in New York. We'll have some bagels.
Yes.
The whole classic thing.
Yes.
So if you wanna stop by, say hello to us. We'll be around. Hopefully filming some content and the like. So we're just very excited for that. I know we keep mentioning it, but we do want to interact with all of y'all.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we're looking forward to it. We'll see you at the finals. I hope. Look, don't be a stranger. If you're there, say hi to us. We'll hang out. We'll have a good time. It's going to be really exciting. We still got promotion relegation coming up as well. So make sure you stay tuned to the podcast. We're still going to have content coming out, maybe a little bit of a collab hitting your screens as well as we move towards promotion relegation. Going to be talking all about that, making sure to cover all the action because the season is not yet done. Follow us on our social media at Salty Runback Pod on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Apple Music and Spotify. Shoot us an email, saltyrunbackpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Hawkcast, at Speedy Graves. We'll see you next week for an episode. And hey, if you thought that Neo and City Witty shouldn't have been co-MVPs, you can take it with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Graves. Have a good